Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Lincoln Journal Stars 4 Downs. Luke Mullin and Amie Just back with you for another Nebraska football update. And Amie, finally, after several weeks of fall camp, it is game week. Nebraska football's game preparation fully underway. UTEP coming to town here on Saturday. And, of course, as it always does, starts with injury updates. Yes. We had the depth chart come out. Not a ton of surprises about who the starters were, but a few injured guys listed there, their status for this upcoming Saturday, worth noting. So I think at the top of that, cornerback Bly Hill, we saw go down with a pretty nasty injury there in the spring. Well, seems like he worked back fully from that. Unfortunately, he did suffer a little bit of a hamstring setback, so still his status may be a little bit in doubt here for this week 1 opener. And then also offensive line in question just a little bit. Henry Lutovsky, Gunnar Gatula, two of those backup guys can maybe play, see a little bit of playing time, may not be available for week 1 as well.
Yeah, Matt Rule said that Bly would be available in an emergency situation, but they're not going to rush him back if they don't need to, right? It's early, so hopefully get that hamstring done. But yeah, it sounds like all of those guys, for the most part, are an emergency only situation, which is good for them trending positively, and then just got to wait and see what happens with the kicking game with Tristan Alvano. He's kicking, but hasn't been named the starter yet since he's still probably not 100%.
Yep, absolutely. So, especially with Bly Hill, we thought when that injury happened, we thought this was going to be, something that was going to eat way into the season. So really good sign for him that he was back practicing, able to return from that injury. So Nebraska will await his return, add to the cornerback depth in that room. But topic today, UTEP, of course, the opponent. A lot of talk about, Nebraska, the internal, what they're focusing on. But hey, there's a talented opponent coming to town here too. So the scout on UTEP, I think the thing that was really notable as we're kind of looking at they turned over half their roster this offseason. It's a new coaching staff, new players on the skill positions, pretty much an entirely new offensive line. So that's posed a little bit of a challenge here for Nebraska. And, of course, I think Matt Rule said, the veterans, those guys, they've done well preparing, knowing the challenge ahead of them. But when you're going up against, a team that's got different personnel, he's saying he was watching a ton of Austin Peay film, which is where this UTEP coaching staff came from. Going to be a little bit of a challenge to install that here this week for Nebraska.
Yeah, and with any early season non-conference game, it feels like you're putting in more work to do scouts because you do have a lot of moving pieces, right? They may have lost a bunch of guys, and so watching film from last year may or may not be helpful. And then when you have a roster that's turned over at least 50 players, it's like, well, okay, we're going to watch where all of these guys came from and then kind of like weave it together. And they're going to have to do that 2 weeks in a row because same story for Colorado.
Yeah, two birds of a feather right there, those two opponents coming up here for Nebraska. But as we looked over this depth chart, I think one of the positions that stood out today was, of course, running back. Pretty much every other position on the depth chart was settled. Who's the starter? Who's the backup? Well, running back, the complete opposite. The 4 guys in the room who were competing for the job, still the 4 guys in the room.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever seen anything quite like that. So I don't know. I can't remember the exact order off the top of my head, but it doesn't matter because they're all oars. So all 4 of them. So you've got Gabe Irvin, Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson, and Dante Dowdle all listed as potential guys who could go. And then today, Matt Rule was asked about it and said that he thinks they're going to play them all. So whether that's Saturday that they're going to play them all or throughout the season, he wanted some separation by now, but it hadn't happened. And so I feel very, very good in my assessment from all off-season long is I don't know what the right answer is because as of game week, they don't either.
Yeah, we still don't know, and I think we've said it multiple times. This is a staff that knows they're going to have to use multiple running backs, so they're going into week 1. They're just like, let's just hit the ground run and do it right away. We'll see how that rotation, that playing time shakes out because that will be a position to watch. And here, in Nebraska football's practice facility, got to hear a little bit from Matt Rule just kind of about the mentality of the team heading into the season opener. Obviously, a ton of excitement to get the season underway, a lot of fans, a lot of buzz around this Nebraska football team, but at the same time, they got to lock in. Matt Rule saying, they got a job to do. It's all about us, when that game starts. So really with this Nebraska team, you think about all the veterans that they have. We saw those single-digit jersey numbers come out last week. It really sounds like the veteran leadership for this team is what's really going to be anchoring them going into the season opener.
Yeah, to me it feels like it's two different teams into one. You've got really veteran guys like Bryce Benhart, who is going to more than likely break the program record for most starts, right? Like, that's insane.
He could be a 50-game starter.
It's wild. And then you have, like, right behind him, you've got, a 19-year-old true freshman quarterback, but they're preparing like they're the same, right? And I think that that's going to be helpful for those young guys, just being able to see older veteran guys kind of lead the way and watch what they do, because they've been here before, and in the case of some of them, they've been here for a long time.
Yep. And this Nebraska football program, they talked about it all off season into fall camp, talking about raising the standard, elevating everything they did from a year ago. And now's the week to put those improvements into action. We'll hear more about the Nebraska offense and defense here for some players in the upcoming days. But that will do it for today's Nebraska football update and 4 Downs. We'll see you next week.